Now, when I say we need to share more about ourselves, I do not mean diving in the deep end. That is not what we're doing here. This dumping or oversharing comes from going too deep and too intense too quickly, and often going negative. So we want to avoid both of these early on. When we start to talk about ourselves to people that we don't know as well, we want to start up at the surface and then work our way like one layer down. That is generally the layer that people enjoy the most and where they want to spend the most time in conversation. So I want you to think about it as sharing personal but not private things. The good news is there's a lot of surface area one layer down in the personal range. There's lots of different aspects of yourself and your life that you can talk about. Sometimes people think that opening up means revealing emotional, negative, or intense things, but it doesn't, right? You can connect just as much by sharing the positive aspects of your experience, like what lights you up and why. It's not that talking about deep things is inherently wrong. With people that you trust and you feel close to, sharing deeper things can bring you closer. Depth is earned. Match the level of depth to the level of trust. If in doubt early on, maybe don't get into the sort of things you talk to a therapist about. Even if we avoid going too deep, we can bump into a different problem. So years ago, I was talking to a coworker who was getting annoyed when she was on a date with this guy, and he'd obviously heard some advice about how you were supposed to not reveal things about yourself in order to be more intriguing or something. So when she asked him what he did, he joked that he was a disposable lighter repairman, which is obviously not real. When she asked again, well, he kept saying that, and he wouldn't actually tell her what he did. She ended up getting quite frustrated and couldn't connect with him. That backfired. Why is he doing this? I'm guessing that in the past, he probably gave that factual answer and had conversations that just didn't really go anywhere. I say that because I think we've all been there in some way. If someone asks you a question and you give a direct, honest answer, that will probably be great in some particular work situations. But it's not great in conversation because that question is also intended as a means to open the interaction up. And a flat, factual answer does the opposite. I think of it like shutting a door. So if someone asks you a question and all you do is provide the answer, then you've essentially closed that particular conversational door. And you force the person you're talking to open the door back up with a follow-up question or to go find another door to open. And this is how we end up in those awkward, have you seen any movies lately? As we search around for another door that might be more compelling. So the solution is not to withhold basic information about yourself. And it's not to invent impressive things. What we want to figure out is how to make ordinary information more engaging. I discovered that we can pull from the science of story and identify what makes something compelling. But then we can combine it with the psychology of human connection. And when I was talking to Hope about this and how to put it into action, I started calling it the bubble method because this makes the strategies easier to remember. Okay, and to be clear, our goal is not to just be entertaining. You're not funny like a clown. You're not here to amuse them. The goal is connection. So we just need to keep people engaged enough that connection has a chance to happen. Because the problem with flat answers is that we really haven't shared the most interesting part. Imagine someone asked me this: how long have you lived in New York City? And I'll say, I moved here about 7 years ago. Yeah, it is great. I really like it. That's nice, but it's boring. So I am forcing them now to ask me what neighborhood I'm in or why I like it or something. I'm also making them work hard to keep this conversation going. Instead, let's go one layer deeper using the first piece of the bubble method by adding because. Yeah, I moved here about 7 years ago because technology was finally good enough that I could work remotely as a psychologist, and so I had options, right? And I really felt drawn towards New York City because I just love that city experience, etc., etc. It is not a huge exaggeration to say, we don't care what you did, we care why you did it. And that why takes us one layer deeper to reveal underlying meaning, and people become more engaged when they're learning why someone does something. There is a reason that all stories quickly give the character a motive, right? Someone they want to get or someone they want to avoid. So if you're in a conversation, we don't necessarily need your deep psychological origin story, but people do like to know how one thing led to another and why we do what we do. So when you're answering questions or you're talking about yourself, challenge yourself to add the word because. Don't just tell me what you spend your time doing. We want to know why you like it, how you got into it, or where you hope to take it. If you want more practice getting down to this more engaging level, I made a worksheet exercise where I reverse engineered what I personally do. So it'll ask the questions that help you find the material you need. And I give my example answers to what I find are the most common questions you'll probably get asked. You can find the link below if you're interested. But there's another strategy I find myself using even more than because. Jigsaws are only engaging when they're unfinished. And we don't reread mystery books when we know who did it. Our brains light up when there is a puzzle and we want to figure it out. Once it's solved, our attention moves to something more interesting. So in story, the main character tends to have different sides to their personality, which often conflict. Like a hero always has a flaw. And when there is contrast and there's complexity and there's nuance, we stay engaged longer until we feel like we have a more cohesive sense of the person. One-dimensional characters are boring and they sit in the background. We, though, are not one-dimensional. We are real humans, and so we have authentic complexity. So we just want to find ways that we can reveal that. One fun way to think about it is this. What are the things about you that people couldn't tell just from looking? And this is especially true if they contrast with the way you seem or appear. So personally, I love finding out what people are weirdly into that you would not guess. I find this really charming, and I think it shows just a really likable side of somebody. I believe everyone has these, and that they just don't necessarily lead with them. Like, for example, Hope is obsessed with TJ Maxx, and I love Billy Joel and watching train videos on YouTube. The next piece of the bubble method is use the word but to reveal complexity, contrast, and tension in your answers.